Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kuli English Podcast. It's me, your host, Chris. So today is episode 33, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit about like English phrases. Okay, so in particular, there are like 3 phrases that I want to talk about. It's going to be win-win, lose-lose, and nothing to lose. And if you've already heard these before, well, then, that's great. If you haven't heard them before, well, I'm going to be explaining everything, and I'll also be telling stories and giving examples so that these phrases will be easier to remember. And again, all these things that I say in the podcast, usually they're based on true stories, and also the things that I teach, I hope, well, in my opinion, are things that are usable in everyday life. So you could use these phrases like nothing to lose or win-win or lose-lose in a lot of contexts. But of course, in the first part of this podcast, I always talk about some random stuff. So let me tell you about some random stuff that has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, but just something that I kind of found out recently that I really like. So something about me is I'm good at throwing balls. And so that means like baseballs, like small balls or like, even ping pong balls, or sometimes if you go to the arcade or you go to the game center, there's like some kind of game where you have to throw a ball and throw it into something. I'm usually pretty good at those kinds of games. I don't really know why. I'm just good at throwing balls. But something that I discovered recently is kind of like the arcade, kind of like the game center. There's something called a batting cage. And I've always known what a batting cage is, and you probably also know what a batting cage is. A batting cage is like a place where you go and then you practice playing baseball, but it's like a one-player thing. So you just go in there and you take a bat, and then like the balls come from a machine, and they always come to the same spot, and then you try to swing the bat, try to hit the ball. And if you're good at it, then you'll hit it. And if you're not so good or you're just normal, then you'll probably miss. And, everyone misses a lot in the beginning. So don't worry about it if you think you suck. I suck too. Everybody sucks. But I'm not talking about the batting cage. Like the thing that I really like is this thing that I discovered quite recently, which is next to the batting cage, they have like another machine that's not a batting cage machine, but it's like a pitching machine. So what happens is they just give you balls, like baseballs, and then you try to throw them at the target as if you're the pitcher in baseball. And I love throwing balls, but I've never really done this kind of thing. And then I tried it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is great. And throwing baseballs is like, it's actually not that easy, because you want to throw them like fast, and you want to throw them accurately because you want to hit the target. So I thought this was like a really fun thing. And, if you've never done this, then feel free to try it out. And if you're not interested, then it's okay. But I just wanted to mention that I started doing this recently, and I really like it. And also, there's like one small random thing, but be careful when you throw the balls and catch the balls, because for me, it was like a really, really small injury. Like I hurt myself in a really, really small way, which is when I caught the ball. Like I had really long nails, which I usually grow out for a guitar, and then one of my nails actually kind of touched the baseball a little bit, like not. It didn't like hit it directly head on. It was just like it barely touched it. It grazed it. And then like the nail kind of broke. But it broke in a really gentle way, so I didn't bleed or anything, and it didn't really hurt. So, when you play sports and stuff, be careful, and definitely check out the pitching machine if you can get a chance. Or maybe the batting cage machine as well. Anyways, let's take a short little break, and then I'm going to be coming back to talk to you about the phrase win-win. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So here in this first section, I want to talk about the English phrase win-win. So the phrase win-win, you just kind of use it as like, oh, ABC is a win-win, or like, oh, that's a win-win. And win-win means like you take the word win and you add a dash and then you add another win, and it means two people are kind of doing something kind of like a trade, or maybe they have like an agreement, or maybe they're working together and they both get something good. So they're both winning. And to give a short little example of this, imagine that you have a friend who's really, really good at cooking. And that person who's really good at cooking, anytime they cook, it's always really good. It tastes great because they're good at cooking. But they're also really dirty. So when they cook, they make a big mess, and then they never clean it up. And I'm thinking of someone in particular. I have a friend that is like that, but I'm not going to mention their name. And now imagine a different friend. Okay, so kind of like an opposite of that person. So this new friend, they're actually really bad at cooking. They're really, really bad at cooking. And anytime they make stuff, they usually mess it up. It usually tastes terrible. But this person is really, really good at washing the dishes. So when they wash the dishes, they do a really good job. And well, actually, I don't really know if you can do like a good job washing the dishes. I think people do like a fine job, and then anything better than fine is like fine. And then sometimes people do a bad job washing the dishes. So it's like still a little bit dirty or it's still oily or something. But anyways, so in this example, you have two people. One person's really good at cooking and one person's really good at cleaning. And then what you do is you have them kind of trade. And this creates a win-win. You can say, oh, that's a win-win. So maybe the guy who's really good at cooking, he's like, hey, how about I cook stuff? And then in exchange, you clean. So I cook, you clean. How about that? And the other person could say something like, oh yeah, that sounds good. That's a win-win. And even someone else who's looking from the outside, so maybe us, so we are not those two friends, but we're thinking about them. We can say, oh yeah, that's a win-win. That creates a win-win situation. You can say it like that. So that's a short little explanation of what win-win means. And let me also give one more example. So I'm going to explain all these English phrases, and I'll also try to give an example from like my own life that was like this. So in this win-win case, I'm going to try to give an example of a win-win. And I think I've actually already mentioned this before, but it was probably in the previous episode where I talked about music stuff, about guitar. But the way that I first learned guitar was sort of like a trade. I kind of traded somebody, and it was a win-win situation. But in high school, I was kind of good at math. And then there was another classmate of mine, and he really wanted to pass like I think it was an AP calculus. You don't have to know what that is, but there's basically like this math test that if you pass it, then you get some credits for college. And so that friend of mine, well, we weren't really friends at first, but we were kind of acquaintances. Acquaintances is like, one step before friends. Like friends probably hang out and chat and stuff, and then acquaintances just kind of know each other. Maybe they don't really hang out. But, we knew each other. And that guy, he was actually really good at guitar. And I think he was actually self-taught in guitar. So he never actually took like standard lessons or something, but he just kind of learned on his own. And I wanted to learn how to play guitar in high school. So then I actually forgot how it started, but eventually we kind of did this trade thing where I would teach him math and he would teach me guitar. And let me also mention that, when I taught math, it wasn't like an annoying thing for me. Like I kind of enjoyed math and I kind of liked teaching it. I guess I also didn't really have friends. So it's like, teaching math or something, it's kind of like making a friend. So I thought it was like totally fine. And then for him, he also probably liked teaching guitar. I mean, like if I talked to him about guitar and stuff, then he'd, be really excited and stuff. And we're also like kind of becoming friends. And he probably enjoyed teaching guitar as well. Sometimes I ask him questions about guitar and then he'll be like, oh, it's like this. And then he'll like kind of keep playing guitar and then he'll keep playing for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. And it's a little bit long because, like if you want to like really teach, then you shouldn't spend too long. But that just means that, this guy's having fun and he's like enjoying playing the guitar and he wants to like share how fun it is to play guitar. But anyways, this situation is kind of like a win-win situation because for me, I don't mind teaching math. Like it's kind of fun. And it's kind of like neutral. It doesn't really hurt me. And then, so, I teach math and then that guy gets like some high quality math lessons. And then in return, this guy's teaching me guitar and he probably enjoys doing it too. Like it doesn't really hurt him to teach guitar. He's kind of like making a friend and he's also teaching someone how to play guitar. And then we all have a good time. So when I'm teaching math, we have a good time. And when he's teaching guitar, we have a good time. So this one is a win-win. All right, so both people kind of did a trade thing and they're both profiting. So they're both benefiting. They're both getting something good out of it. So that is like one of the best warm examples that I have about win-win. But, there's an opposite of win-win and that's called lose-lose. But let's take a short little break and then we're going to talk about that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this next section here, which is the opposite of win-win. So again, just to review, win-win meant like you kind of have two people and they agree to do some stuff, maybe a trade or maybe they're working together and they both get something good out of it. So it's like a good thing. If they didn't do it at all, then, they get nothing. But because they're doing it, then they both get something good. So win-win is usually a very good thing. And then there's the opposite of this, where it's called lose-lose, which means that two people are kind of doing something and, maybe they want something. They want a win-win, but they don't win. And both people end up kind of negative. So if they didn't do it at all, then nothing happens. But because they did it, they actually end up worse than they were before. And this is called lose-lose. So let me go ahead and give a example of this. That's actually not from my life, but it's just an easy to understand example. But let's talk about divorce. So divorce is like the opposite of marriage, right? So imagine that there's a man and a woman and they love each other very much and then they get married. And then there's the sad opposite, which is suppose that after they get married, they, start to hate each other and they don't like each other and they want to get divorced. So divorce is like to end the marriage. They want to cancel the marriage. And when you divorce, sometimes you can have a peaceful divorce where they say, okay, let's separate. And then, let's split the money in half. And then the car, okay, you can have the car, but you got to pay me a little bit of money or something like that. But then sometimes it's not very peaceful. It's very aggressive. It's a very nasty divorce. And that's when the two parents fight each other a lot. So imagine that, there's the mom and the dad says, I want the house and I want the car and I'm not paying you a single cent. And then the mom says, what? I want the house and I want the car and I get everything. You get nothing. And then, so these two people, if they want everything for themselves, then they have to argue. They have to figure out who gets what. And this is kind of like a nasty divorce fight. And it's pretty sad, but sometimes divorces, it costs a lot of money and it costs a lot of time and it costs a lot of stress as well. So you can imagine that maybe, they got to figure out who gets the house and then they're arguing and they got to hire some lawyers and the lawyer's going to come and say, oh, well, this man, according to this document here, he bought the house and it's in his name. So he gets the house. And then, the other lawyer comes in and the lawyer says, actually, no, it was signed with two people here. So you can't say that. But you might have these kinds of nasty fights. And then the lawyers, they cost money too. So this whole divorce thing, if they fight really, really hard and then they win, then maybe they get most of it. But both the mom and the dad, they still have to pay the fees for going to court and then the paperwork and then also paying for the lawyers. And then if they can't reach an agreement, then they just both keep fighting and spending resources. They keep spending money, they keep spending time, and it's probably really stressful. So this is an example of lose-lose. If two people are fighting in a divorce and it's taking a long time, it's probably a lose-lose. So that's kind of a sad example. Let me give a simpler example. And this time it's actually from my actual everyday life. But sometimes when it's really late at night, when it's late at night, you're supposed to go to sleep. Okay, that's everyone knows that that's the right thing to do. But every now and then, maybe before sleeping, I'm in the middle of some kind of thing. Sometimes I'm actually recording the podcast because I have lights at home and stuff. So I can do it anytime. I can do it in the morning. I can do it at night. It doesn't matter. But if it's late at night and I'm recording, then sometimes I keep going. I keep recording for a long time because I really want to finish the episode. I want to record all the episodes. All the parts of the episode, and then I want to put it all together. I want to be done, and then I can sleep, and I can be happy. And then sometimes I'm not really working, but I'm just playing games or something. But as an example, imagine that I'm playing a game, and this actually happened pretty recently. But I was playing a game late at night, and it's probably 1 a.m. and I should go to sleep, but I keep losing in the game. And I really wanted to win, and it was really close to winning. So I keep playing. I'm okay, that's fine. I'll just play a little bit more, and I'll play until 1:15 a.m. And then if I lose, then I'll stop. I'll go to bed. And then, it's 1:15 a.m. and I still didn't win. I keep losing. I'm okay, well, how about I play until 1:30 a.m. and then it's fine. I want to be done with this, and then I can have a good sleep, and then I can wake up the next day and feel good. And then, maybe it goes to 1:30 and I still didn't win. And, in either case, if I was doing some work really late, or if I play games until really late, then when it's actually time to go to bed, I can't really fall asleep. Because I guess like when you do like intense things, when you do like work or you have like bright lights or you play games that are really intense, then you can't really like calm down. It's not really peaceful. So what ends up happening is like, the game or something, I probably didn't win. And then I go to bed and I go to bed a loser. So I didn't win the game. I just wasted, an extra 30 minutes of my time. It's late at night. I'm not really good at games. I wasn't sleeping. So I wasted that time. And the next day I also feel tired because the last night I was up too late. And the same for the recording of the podcast stuff, and this sounds kind of good. It's like, oh yeah, you're working until late at night, but it's actually not good because when I talk late at night, like my mind moves a little slower. I think I do a worse job of talking. And then not only that, but the next day I feel it. The next day I feel tired. So I think this is a good example of lose-lose. So I played the game and then I wanted to win and then I don't win. So I lost the game and then I go to bed late. And then I'm tired because, I didn't really sleep enough. So it's just like lose everywhere. And the same for the podcast example. So if I'm recording late at night, I usually don't do a really good job. And then it makes me want to do it again. I'm like, oh, I want to get a good recording. And then I want to do it again. And I waste more time. And then not only that, but the next day I'm also tired. So then like the smartest thing would have been to just say, okay, well, that's okay. I'm going to cut my losses. So even though I've already spent some time and I didn't get what I want, I'm going to cut my losses and then I'm going to go to sleep. And then the next day, maybe I'll try again. I think that's like the right thing to do. But, when it's late at night, it's kind of hard to do the right thing. A lot of people just like stay up and play games or watch TV or something. I think it's part of being human. So that's my personal example of lose-lose. And then, so let's take a short little break here, and I'm going to come back to you with this last explanation for a special phrase. All right, so let's go ahead and make our way into this last section here. So first, let's go ahead and review the couple phrases that I mentioned. The first one was win-win. So what is win-win? Win-win is, sorry, I was just checking my mic to make sure that it was plugged in. I've been recording 37 minutes here, and I want to make sure that I'm not losing all of it. But anyways, let's go and review what win-win is. Win-win is like when you have two people, or maybe you have like two things where you're trying to make progress, and both of those things go well. Or maybe both of those people get something good out of it. They benefit from it. As an example, the person who's really good at cooking and the person who's really good at cleaning, and they kind of trade and they do what they're good at, and then both of them win. Both of them get what they want. So win-win is a positive thing. And the opposite of win-win, which is a bad thing, is lose-lose. So lose-lose is like when you have two people and they're trying to do something. Imagine like a divorce, and they want everything, but because they're fighting, then they have to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and in the end, they actually end up worse than if they were to do nothing. So that's like lose-lose. And it doesn't have to be two people. It can also be some other example. Like for me, like, oh, I really wanted to win the game, but then I end up losing the game and I lose sleep. And the next day I'm like tired. So that's like triple lose. That's like lose, lose, lose. I'm just kidding. You don't say lose, lose, lose. It's like maximum two. So win-win, lose, lose. And then this next phrase here that I want to introduce is nothing to lose. All right, so nothing to lose is exactly like those words. You have nothing to lose. So, for example, if if you're betting something, like you go to gamble, and if you win, maybe you can double your money, and if you lose that money. That's not nothing to lose because you have something to lose. You're gambling your money. If I put $5 and bet on this, if I win, I might get $10. If I lose, then I lose the $5 that I bet. Then that's not nothing to lose. Nothing to lose is something where, for example, how about the same example, except the first $5 that I bet, it's free. So somebody says, hey, do you want to go ahead and gamble? You can put $5, and then if you win, you get $10. And then if you lose that $5. But I will give you $5 so that you can play at least once. And so since that person gave you the $5, you don't actually lose anything. So in this case, you can say, oh, nothing to lose. And you take that guy's $5 and then you bet it, and then maybe you win, or maybe you end up getting nothing. But in both cases, you don't lose anything. Maybe you get 10 extra dollars and that's good. Or maybe you actually don't get anything, which is like zero. That's nothing. You had nothing to lose. So let me go ahead and give a better example here, an example that you might actually use in life. I think that gambling example is actually not that bad because a lot of casinos actually do that, where you go to a casino and, assuming that gambling is legal, it depends where you live, not in Japan, but if you go to like a casino in Canada, actually I went to Canada, and then there's this one casino where they actually give you $5 to start with. And that's the minimum bet at like some stuff. So you go there and then they just give you $5 and then you can go bet something. So then the first time you play it, it's free. But of course, what they really want is they want you to play it and then have fun and then you use your own money. But me, because I was really cheap, what I did was I think I bet the $5 and ended up winning. So I had $10 and then I left. Well, I didn't leave because, I was waiting on other people. So I just like waited. I didn't play anymore after that. So I played one game, I won, and then I didn't play anymore because I wanted to win. I didn't want to lose anything. But anyways, let me go ahead and give an example that's actually related to language learning stuff. So as an example, how do you get better at speaking English? Well, probably one of the most important things to do is to practice speaking English. So no matter how much you listen to English, your speaking won't actually get much better unless you actually spend many hours speaking. And that's like, this is something that probably, not just me, but people who teach English or people who study language stuff, it's very important that you practice the thing that you want to get good at. If I want to get good at baseball, I have to practice baseball. If I want to get good at listening, I have to practice listening. And speaking is hard because it's kind of hard to practice speaking. Most people, they don't really speak to themselves or they don't really speak to the wall. You only speak when you actually talk to another human. And, most of our lives, it's not always the case that somebody is there waiting to hear you speak. It's not like a phone that's like, oh, hello, my name is Elsa AI. I'd like to speak to you. I don't really know about that. This is not an advertisement or anything. But if you want to practice speaking, sometimes you'll have a situation where maybe, as an example, and I've talked about this in a previous podcast episode before, but imagine that you are at the train station. You are a Japanese person and you are at a Japanese train station and you see like some other people speaking English and they don't know how to charge their IC card. And they're like, oh man, I don't know how to charge this. Like I tried to pay it money and it didn't work. This is so hard. And then so this is like a chance, okay? And so as a Japanese person, you have a choice. Maybe you can help them. And then when you help, then you can try to use your English and say like, oh, do you guys need help? I can help you charge your card. And then you could do that or you could do nothing. And if you do nothing, then you get nothing, right? So if you do nothing, you just go home. You don't lose anything. You don't gain anything. That's just zero. But if you talk to them, what does that cost you? Well, it costs you like, I guess a little bit of time. And then also maybe if they didn't want your help, they'll say, oh, no, sorry, we're good. And then you say, oh, okay. And then you feel a little bit embarrassed and then you go home. But that's kind of really, really small. Like if you try to help somebody, if you try to help a stranger and then they don't want your help, you don't really lose anything. So in that case, I think you can say nothing to lose. And it's not only nothing to lose. Nothing to lose also implies, it usually also means that you have maybe something to gain. So if things go well, you get something. If things don't go well, you don't really lose anything, except maybe you feel a little bit embarrassed. Or maybe when you explain something, you messed up the English and you have to explain it a second time. I think it's totally fine. That's really part of the process, and I think it's good. But you might actually get something. And what is that get something? You help someone else. Okay, so you can feel good about yourself because you helped someone. Not only that, but actually if things go really, really well, you might make a friend. And then if you make a friend who speaks English, well, that's probably good for you. So that's an example. Sometimes the thing that you have to pay is like your own feeling. Like you have to get over the obstacle. You have to get over the hurdle of, oh, it might be embarrassing for me to do this. But then you got to push yourself and do it because you think to yourself, I have nothing to lose. If I offer help or if I say hello and they ignore me, I don't really lose that much. It's not like you have to pay money to say hello. You just have to be a little bit embarrassed. Like you say, hello, and they say, oh, we're not really looking for anything. Sorry. And you say, oh, okay. And that's it. But if things go well, it's really, really good because they'll say, oh, hello, like, where are you from? Oh, we have a question about this thing. Can you help us find this or something? And you'll get some practice talking to people and you'll get better at English for sure. And let me also, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so I have, yeah, there's nothing to lose here. I have one more example here. And again, so these are examples that actually I have applied in my life as well. So like, in practicing Japanese, that a lot of the times I feel embarrassed because I don't want to talk to these people, but then I want to practice and I don't really have anything to lose. So I say, okay, nothing to lose. And then I go and practice. But let me give another example here for practicing English. So this one's actually something that I haven't done for Japanese, but maybe it's something that you can do for English. And it's I'm going to talk about something called Webtoon. So Webtoon is like an app on your phone where you can read comics. And again, this is not an advertisement. Okay, so nobody's paying me money to like talk about this, but it's just something that I used to do because I liked reading like random comics and stuff. And when you read comics, you have to use that language to read. So this is like, it's very obviously an example where you'll get better at the language. So if you read a lot of English, you'll get better at English. You'll get better at reading English. You won't necessarily get better at speaking English. You'll probably get a little bit better. But if you want to practice reading English, then comics, I think, are a pretty fun way to do it. Because comics are like, you get to see these characters do like superhero things, or you get to see these characters do like romance things. It's like exciting, whatever genre you want. If you want fantasy, action, thriller, murder, anything. So again, let's go ahead and zoom out and talk about this. So what I just did was I talked to you about reading comics. And I said, oh, maybe this is a way for you to practice English. Maybe you'll get better at reading English. And then so let's go ahead and look at this, and let's look at the pros and let's look at the cons. So the pros are the potential good things and the cons are the potential negative things. So the potential good thing is, if you read the comic, well, number one, it might be fun. And number two, you might get practice in that language. So these are like good things. And what are the negatives? Well, I have to try out this app. I have to like download it from the App Store, but it's free. And then I have to like spend time trying to read it. But, if it's boring or if it's not fun, like I can quit anytime. So in this case, I think this is also an example of you have nothing to lose. And another valid thing to say here, I'm not saying that everyone who listens to this has to go and try it. And if you don't try it, then you're missing out. That's not true. If you are not interested, you can also say, yes, it's true, I have nothing to lose, but I also have nothing to gain. So that's the other phrase here. So nothing to lose means I have nothing to lose. It's not going to cost me anything. And nothing to gain is, oh, there's no positive good thing that I could get from this. So if you hate comics, if you hate reading fiction stories, and if you hate stories about romance, hate stories about superheroes, then you can say, yeah, the comics are going to be boring to me. It's not going to be fun. Then you can say, I have nothing to gain. And that's how you kind of like reject it. So I could say, hey, why don't you try reading this comic? You have nothing to lose. And they'll say, yeah, but I also have nothing to gain, which means, yes, it's true. I have nothing to lose. It doesn't cost me anything, but I also have nothing to gain. There's nothing for me to get from doing this. So let me give one more example here. This is an anti-example of something that's not nothing to lose. But sometimes, every now and then, I'm not going to mention any specific examples, but I'm sure everyone has seen this in their life. But every now and then, you look on social media, so maybe Facebook or Instagram, and you see somebody post a really, really long post, and they're mad about something. And, they say something like, oh, like my manager is like a bad person, or like, oh, I hate this politician or something like that. And these kinds of like angry posts. And these, I think when people write these late at night, it's maybe like late at night. And for me, maybe I'm playing games or something. I'm like losing at my game. I'm doing my lose-lose situation. But then sometimes people are in that situation. It's late at night and they're feeling kind of angry. And they're like, I'm so mad at this person. I hate this person. And I'm going to post on my Facebook about how I hate this person. I'm going to post on my Instagram about how much I hate this person. And you post it. And then you might be thinking, oh, I have nothing to lose because everything that I say is true. It's their fault that they're stupid. It's their fault that they're dumb. And it's their fault for making me angry. So I'm going to post this. I have nothing to lose. But the truth is, in that case, you do have something to lose, which is maybe afterwards you're going to regret it. Maybe you'll say something that you didn't mean, or maybe it's something that maybe you should have thought about more. And so then the advice there is just kind of like, again, me playing games late at night, I'm not really good at making decisions. And then I want to win, but I'm not doing a good job because late at night, people are usually not as smart as they are when they're well rested. So if you want to post something really big, you can do it, but just don't do it late at night and wait until the next day. So maybe you can type it out and then the next day, if you still want to post it, then go ahead and post it. And I'm sure that's something that you won't regret. You'll never regret posting something like the next morning as opposed to very, very late at night. So that one is not nothing to lose. That one is you do have something to lose. Maybe you'll say something mean that you don't want to, or maybe you just end up doing something that you should have thought more about. But anyways, maybe that's enough for this episode. So thank you so much for listening until the end of the episode of Kuli English Podcast. And as always, if you want to support me, then definitely feel free to subscribe or, follow or do whatever. Or if you don't want to, it's okay. And if you like this episode, you can always comment and tell me. It makes me really happy to receive those kinds of comments. I get like one of those comments like a month. Once a month, I get some kind of nice comment from a stranger that I don't know. And those are actually really nice to receive because I know that this podcast is helping people. Of course, you also don't have to comment. And remember, the goal of this podcast is so that you can listen to stuff in the background. Okay, so I'm just trying to accompany whatever you're doing in the background. So maybe you're like folding the laundry or like washing the dishes or pooping or something, and you're like focused on something. All right, you're focusing on pooping, you're focusing on washing the dishes or cooking or something. But in the background, there's English running, and that is the goal of this podcast. Okay. So anyways, thanks so much for listening and hope to see you next Tuesday.